website to find qualified contractors. Active soil depressurization is the most common approach to radon mitigation. We talked about how our houses suck on the ground underneath because we have a lower air pressure in the basement versus the air underneath. An active soil depressurization system aims to reverse that pressure differential. Caulking and sealing are not a standalone technique for mitigation. So you can't just go and seal up cracks and call it a day. That has to be done in conjunction with soil depressurization. Ventilation approaches are generally more costly and less effective. So I was talking about how like the apartment complex had to use a ventilation approach because the building materials themselves were contaminated. Most homes though, that's going to be way more expensive than simply preventing the radon from getting in from underneath the house. So active soil depressurization, okay, this is too complicated to understand. We're going to use this one. Essentially, we talked about this air pressure down here is lower than this air pressure down here, so it sucks on the ground. This is a simple drawing of what the system might look like. Basically a 4-inch hole in the basement slab. The pipe runs up and outside of the home at ground level, goes outside of the home, and there's a fan installed in it. That fan is a low power fan running on all this air underneath the home and lowering the air pressure underneath the home. Its goal is not to pull all the radon gas out. It does do some of that, but its main goal is to lower this air pressure down here. It flips our pressure differential, and instead of our home sucking on the ground underneath, the ground sucks on our home. It eliminates most radon entry. Radon is collected and exhausted outdoors above the roof line, and it dissipates into the air. This has been done for a very long time. These systems were actually developed for other soil gas entry before we knew radon was an issue, and now we use them for radon as well. There are different ways to install these systems. For instance, if you have a sump system under the home, you can tie a radon system into that sump system. It already has a really efficient way to collect water underneath the home and drainage, so if you just draw on that space and pull the air out from underneath. You can do sub-membrane depressurization. This is the case when a home is built on a crawl space and you have a high level of radon. So you don't have that slab to rely on to basically draw air out from underneath, so you have to create a physical barrier. So first you encapsulate the crawl space and it has to be a very tight encapsulation, sealed on all the walls and joists. And then you have to put a pipe down into the encapsulation and suck on the air underneath the encapsulation. And it does the same thing in reversing our pressure differential and venting the radon gas out from underneath. Drain tile depressurization can also be done if there's already a water management system underneath the home. This is a really effective way to draw into a system that's already there to really effectively mitigate radon issues. And then block wall depressurization can also be done if you have these cinder block walls that may be allowing the radon to get in. I would say this is done less commonly in the US, and when I do see it, I see it in a home that might have one suction point in the slab down here and one suction point in a block wall, just to make sure you're eliminating all of the entry points for radon to get into your home.
Can you go back one slide?
Yes. This one?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Any questions about sub-slab depressurization before I talk about the fan placement, things like that? Yeah.
So what would they do on a main
Yeah.
repair?
Yeah. Except instead of out the roof line, but just creating that pipe, it's going to be cooled or heated by the air of the home. It creates a drag and naturally pulls radon out from underneath the home.
So that's like PVC pipe or?
Yep, it's like a 4-inch PVC pipe that goes into the ground, and we'll talk about the details.
Required anywhere?
It's required in Loganville. That's the only place. I would say some builders do it if they know an area is going to be high. Not many do. A lot of areas in Georgia could benefit from it because the cost is a lot less than retrofitting a home. Because you're paying for, basically you're paying for pipe and a little bit for it to be installed, and maybe a junction box in the attic if you need to install it again. It's really cheap compared to the labor of retrofitting and running container services. So I think it'll be done more in the future. Georgia may pass laws on it eventually, but we seem to be behind the times with radon gas. So it's something you might want to talk to a builder about, though, if you're building a development, because it's a high value add for a home. Any other questions? Oh.
Contracts have, they're saying it's your problem. You're welcome to track that.
Right. And a lot of people just don't want to deal with it because they think they put our radon resistant new construction in, and it'll make the home look like, oh, there's radon in it, right? But as we learn more about it, I think the public will gain more knowledge, and people will know that it's a good thing.
For a few years here in Atlanta, and then also Fisher Homes. You
That's
know,
really
I know
good to hear.
some of the builders, so that's how I know it's really nice because this way when we're selling it, we can let them know that they have something already in place that if they do need it, they don't have to go try to retro it.
Right. That's really awesome. And a big value add too is the look of a radon mitigation system can be kind of funky. If you build it into the home, that's all contained inside it. So it's not something you see. It's not going to hurt your feel on the home at all. So yeah, really good value add. I'm glad to hear some of the builders are doing it. With fan placement, you basically have two options with where a fan can go. If the pipe goes up through the home, the fan goes in the attic. If the pipe goes outside of the home, the fan goes outside of the home at ground level. A fan does not go in the basement or on the first level of the home, inside. And the reason for that, if there's ever a leak in a system, if the fan were right here in the home, the leak would cause radon to be spewed from the soil into the home. If there's a leak in this system and the fan is outside the home, it's pushed into the outdoor air outside the home. So fan placement is important. And another important thing is that a gauge determining whether the fan needs to be installed. This is an older type of gauge. It's called a U-tune. Even it means the fan has broken and it's no longer sucking on. Now they also make electronic, basically it's like a smoke detector but for your radon system. So when the fan stops running, it'll beep. These are better than these U-tubes because a lot of people aren't going to go where the U-tube is and check it that often. But if you hear a beep, this is most commonly needed in Georgia when we have a house built directly on Georgia regulated. And you don't have a good aggregate under the home, like gravel for it to suck on. You may need 2 points to extend that low pressure field across the entire lower level of the home. Because if you're just drawing on that hard clay, it may not extend across the whole slab, and it may not prevent all radon entry. Here is our extra complicated home, and an example of what a mitigator may do in that home. When I talked about for testing, they would basically install a suction point in the basement, make sure the sump is either covered or put the suction point into the sump. They would install a suction point in the crawl space after they encapsulated it, and they may install a suction point in the block wall here. And that can all be tied into a single fan that exhausts out the roof. That way you don't need several fans and several sources of electricity. Here's what a system might look on a sealed sump system. This is the radon pipe. This is the water pipe. You can tie a radon system into drain going around the home. That's an example in the top left corner. This is an example of a radon tube poking out the roof of a home. This is an example of an encapsulated crawl space with that pipe going down underneath the encapsulation. And here is an example of just the fan on the outside and the system running just above the eave of the roof line. Any questions on this? Yes?
The encapsulation that you're showing there, is that just plastic, like a vapor barrier, or is that
Yep.
concrete?
Yep, just plastic, vapor barrier sealed around the walls on the outside. Yeah, yes.
That new construction, you say that does not need a fan?
So if the new construction pipe is going up directly through the home, it does not need a fan installed in it. It may need a fan installed in it if the house still tests high with that pipe in it to basically activate the system. And some people just choose to install it anyway and not turn it on unless it's needed to. Because the fan costs $100. So if you want to avoid having to come back and install the fan. Yeah. Here, did we have another question? Sorry. No? Okay, good. The start here is the hole cut in the slab. Most mitigators will do some pressure testing on the slab to see where good places are to put the pipe, and they will be trying to identify spaces that are unfinished and hidden away, whether that is in a closet, in a utility room, or something like that. They can usually find a space that is not visible from inside the home. You have to dig out some of the dirt down underneath there so that you have this pocket of air for the system to draw on. You'll see the gravel there that they pulled out, and you'll also vacuum some stuff out from inside there. The pipe goes on there, and it's sealed around the pipe so that it's a really tight seal. The fan is installed. Like we talked about, it can either be in the attic or on the outside of the home. These are real quiet fans. It can also be in the garage. Less than 90 watts, expected life of 10 to 15 years. This is basically the only maintenance you do on your system is replace the fan when it breaks. It's a really low maintenance system.
Do they put replaceable fittings on the fans that are outdoors, or do they seal them with PVC glue?
These are the replaceable fittings on these. I think that's what they normally do. Yeah. That was a good question. It might be sealed. It might be sealed on the outside, so they might have to saw through the pipe again and put new fittings on it. Yeah. The discharge should be high enough to avoid re-entering the building. Some lazy mitigators will have the pipe come out the basement, stick up in the air, and go up about a foot. And it'll go right under one of your windows, and it can cause radon to re-enter back into the home. That's why it needs to go up above the roof line, but everything gets paid.
I was driving by the house a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And they had their mitigation fans above the sloped roof front porch.
Yeah.
But there are windows above that. Is that code or not?
Depends how far away it was from the windows, but it's probably not. Yeah, it was probably not. Probably someone was trying to do a quick job and not route the pipe right. There's no need to install a rain cap on these systems. It seems like you draw a lot of water, but it's a really small opening, and the fan actually dries a lot of the water underneath the home, so you really reduce a lot of the moisture under your slab with an installation of one of these systems. It's an added benefit to the systems. We talked about this performance indicator. These are a few of the older ones. I definitely recommend upgrading to the electronic ones so that it beeps when the radon fan breaks. That way you just don't need to worry about going and checking your YouTube constantly. You also must label the radon system. So other things that can go into 4-inch PVC pipe include wastewater. So if you don't label your radon system, there is a chance that other systems get tied into the radon system. We had a person have a toilet plumbed into their radon system. And when the toilet was flushed, it became very apparent where it was draining. Yeah. Yeah. So labels are important. We know it's a radon system. Also, it'll have what company installed it, so if you need to get it serviced, you know who to call. Radon exhaust requirements. They must be above the edge of the roof line, 2 feet higher than any windows within 10 feet, and a minimum of 10 feet off the ground. Important to note. The exhaust can exhaust moisture from out under the home, and that's why we don't want it below the eave of the roof line, because we can create some mold and moisture issues that'll condensate under the roof. Gas appliances require a backdraft test after we install the radon system. We're creating this change in pressure inside the home. We're pulling on that air, so it could affect gas appliances. We want to make sure there are no leaks. Post-mitigation testing. I think this is a question on your quiz. Pay attention. You have to wait 24 hours before doing a follow-up test. A short-term test is placed in the same location as the first test, and you should test the new system within 30 days. We recommend testing every home within 2 years of installing, or within 2 years. So, no, every home with a mitigation system tested within 30 days. Thereafter, every home, regardless of whether it has a mitigation system, should be tested every 2 years. These systems work. I've showed you guys a lot of graphs, but here's a continuous radon monitor test before a system was installed, and then one after the system was installed, down below 2. This is exactly what you'd expect to see. They very significantly reduce radon levels. So how do you know if they're qualified? We want to make sure we want to ask if they have a warranty on their product, because often they will guarantee they will have levels below a certain number in their contract. And you want to see if they have referrals or Google reviews, because some of the shoddy contractors, it's easy to identify with their Google reviews, or if they're not. Any questions on mitigation before we talk about resistant new construction? Yeah.
What was considered a high level?
Anything above 4, we want to mitigate it. Yeah. So new construction. Basically, you can build a home radon resistant with these similar techniques to fixing it, but as the home is built. It can create a lot of good consumer demand for these homes, increase the value. The basic components of a passive radon system that need to be installed, these are unique components that might not already be there in a regular home. We want to make sure there is large gravel beneath the slab. Sometimes this is already done, sometimes it is not. We want to make sure there is a polyethylene barrier between the gravel, and the slab. Now this also sometimes already done in homes. Then something that's not done is we put this key down into the gravel and make sure this pipe can access here down here. If there is a footer in the slab, you need to make sure that there are openings in the footer for base home, generally inside walls, goes into the attic, out the roof line, and you have to put a junction box in the attic so that you can plug in your fan if the fan needs to be installed. So how does it work? The pipe is warmed by the house air, creating a stack effect inside the pipe itself. That warmed air rises, creating a slight vacuum on the soil that is usually cooler than the air inside the pipe, and will generally create a natural little stack effect. You may need to activate the system. You can have this exhaust fan installed. Usually the fan is smaller than what is in a regular radon mitigation system. Another advantage, less noisy, less energy. And because it already has an ideal, basically, aggregate to pull on. And then you also have the warning system with the YouTube monitor. Other building practices that can help: sealing our ductwork really well, covering and sealing sump pumps, tight slabs, and sealing up other entry routes. Any questions? Awesome. Y'all are doing great. I know this is a lot of time for radon gas. So you want to make sure there's a bed or a connection for each separate foundation type. We can also get the wet sealing, we talked about that, and provide that. It's include a way to flow around the slab. In this case, there's a perforated pipe that T is to, so it can pull air from across the whole bottom of the home, and that pipe is buried just as the slab moving forward. I helped them install a system like this on hard clay, but they did it instead of a perforated pipe with basically drainage material that you would connect for a lot of water drainage issues. So just a way for the air to move underneath the slab. Using your sump is also an alternative way to install the system. They can be connected to the sump system. Unique costs in radon-resistant new construction are this passive vent, $40 in PVC, 2 additional junction boxes, $20 to $40. Sump cover if you need one, about $25, and a layer of that large gravel underneath the slab, which is $100 to $250. So the average cost is pretty low. So here we're going to get into a little bit of research on this to just prove that this is really effective. passive radon systems were installed in 45 homes here. And then the systems were all capped. They basically put a cap on the top of them and measured the radon in all 45 homes. The average level was 5.9. They uncapped all the homes, left them for a day, and measured them. The average level was 2.5. So these systems are really, really effective as a whole. 20 of those 45 were greater than 4 in their capped conditions. The radon average was about 10.7. Uncapped, the radon average was 3.7. So the average decrease was 7 picograms per liter. Again, 25 were lower than 4, but there was still an average reduction in the radon levels with these systems, which, like we said, is important. No level of radon is technically safe, so having a system will make a home safer pretty much no matter what. So these are really low cost. You can basically gain a market advantage, aesthetic advantage. You will adapt to changing building codes. Like we said, Loganville changed their building codes in the last year. And you can prevent liability. Yeah.
Is that in Georgia that we did the cap?
No, that was in Pennsylvania. Yes, yes. In a state that requires this in parts of the state. Yeah. That's a good question, though. And so, a new construction home is about $350 to $500 to install radon resistant. To mitigate an existing home, between $900 and $2,500 on average. The cost goes up the more complex and large the home gets. All right, so that is like, we're like doing really well here. So you have options when you're selling a home. Are you going to use the disregard and ignore approach? A lot of that happens these days in Georgia due to a lack of knowledge or due to a lack of laws on radon. The advantage is that you don't really have to do anything else. There's no burden on you. The disadvantage is that radon is a risk and you can run into costs later if a potential buyer tests, finds it, and is not aware of it. It can just make the home selling process more complicated. You can have a simple disclosure warning statement on a home sale saying that radon might be an issue in these areas. The advantage is that it reduces your liability, but it could create concern. If you just say radon might be an issue, it could scare a buyer. The seller testing approach is a really good approach, I think. You can get those radon measurements right at closing. You know what they are right before you buy the home. The disadvantages is that the buyer may not be confident in the test if it wasn't through either an approved person or they didn't talk with the tester to make sure it was done properly. Other approaches are the buyer testing approach. There's a contingency and purchase agreement. You can have, oh gosh, corporate relocation. Or you can have the seller escrow. Ignore the corporate relocation. The seller escrow, which would basically be these long-term tests, super accurate, but it requires putting money in escrow for a radon mitigation system should you need one. We can look at this case that happened in Pennsylvania. The home was purchased with a radon inspection in the purchase agreement. This company hired a tester, and the results were 1.5 and 1.6. That was pretty low. 1 year later, a local mitigator calls offering to help lower radon levels, and the home had been previously tested at 40. And so they are alleging that there was fraud in these charcoal tests that were done in the home because previously there was data that said the home had tested at 40. And so there was a lawsuit, and there ended up being a $10,000 payment to the defendants for fraud in the sale of that home. So this is one example when there was actually legal liability enforced through radon. Radon doesn't have to be a deal breaker. I like to tell people the more you know, the more capable you guys are dealing with it. And the main thing, if you learn nothing else from this class, you can always call me and ask me questions. It's my job to help with that. Please take my card. I want to help you guys out. We've got through most of the material in this class. So what I'd like to do is pass out these forms for you guys to take home a radon test kit if you would like one. So you can test your own personal homes. Again, I'm just going to include a stack for each row. You can just take them and pass them along. And while you guys fill those out, I'll show you how to use the.
It's all ours back.
It's way to you, don't worry.
If we get some more,
Oh my God.
No more. Nothing left. Nothing left this row.
we need more paper.
I've got more. More papers, anyone?
Oh,
There we go, baby.
yeah. So these are extra.
Anyone need a form? Cool. All right, so while you guys fill that out, these test kits come in this plastic seal. They do not start testing until they're removed from the plastic. So when you are ready to test, you basically cut open the plastic and take your kit out. There is a little piece of cardboard here on the inside of the kit. So basically pinch the sides of the kit, that'll hold it open, and you push the cardboard into the test kit. And that basically pops it open so that air can flow. This test kit is filled with activated charcoal. So it's basically absorbing radiation. You hang it in the lowest lived-in level of your home. When you're done, I would say ideal is about 4 days. When you're done, you pop the cardboard out. There's a little piece of tape on the inside that you peel off and seal. And this is already self-addressing stamp to go to our laboratory. Now you need to make sure that your name and address are on it. Your email address is where they will send you the results, so make sure to write that legibly. And it also needs to have your starting date, starting time, ending date, and ending time. That's all in the instructions and on the kit, but those are the things that people normally get wrong. It's already self-addressing stamp. Pop it in the mail. In about a week, you'll get an email with your results. If you're having trouble finding them, call me. I can always look them up on our that's how you use these kits.
Do we test it for 2 days or 3 days?
3 to 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, anywhere between 3 and 7.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so, before you turn these in, any more questions on the kits? I know you guys are excited. Oh, no, yes.
Did you say we're not allowed to use that space?
You can use the space. You can definitely use the space.
Okay.
Just don't put it in like the draft of a fan or something, but like put it in your regular living space.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
It hangs or
Huh?
like hang?
Yes. Between 2 and 6 feet off the ground. It has a little hook on it.
Oh, so it go up or?
Yeah. So
Set it on top?
anywhere in your living space, don't set it on something. It has a little hook on it. You can also put that hook on a hanger and hang it off a table or something.
So should we like be out of town to do that?
No. You have closed house conditions. It means the doors and windows are shut. You can still enter and exit as you normally would. You just don't want to prop the doors and windows open during.
Oh,
Yeah. Good questions. Any other questions here? Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can't put it on the floor.
Not on the floor.
Okay.
Don't put it on a table, but you could hang it off of the table. It's got a little hook on it.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Is that as accurate as the one?
If done properly, yes. If it's done not according to the instructions, the result isn't accurate. So just make sure you follow the instructions as well as you can. Yeah.
So you should put it close to air purifier or anything like that?
So they can be in the same room as an air purifier, but not in the very drafted one. With these, they have charcoal in them that absorbs radon. And it will absorb a lot more radon if air is blowing across it. And so your result will look really high if you put it like in front of a fan, when your result may not actually be high. Cool. So, before you guys turn those into me, it's time for you to take your test.
Oh, no.
add to it here. And so, all right, this is our post-test for you guys to scan. I will say, once you're finished with the test, you can come see me with your form and turn it into me. I think Alexis wants to say something to you guys before you're done too. Yeah, so go ahead and say.
We would love for you to think of us the next time that you are scheduled a home inspection. If you have questions, give us a call. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you. Yeah.
So when you finish your quiz, come see me and I'll get you your kit. And after that, you're free to go. And make sure you're signed in so I can give you credit. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, it's not the right place, just because it's not the area you're exhausting. Thank you. Yeah, so I recommend getting another one to do it in any part of the house, or you can do it with that, and then see what that is. Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, sure thing. Thank you. So glad you did that. Yeah. Yeah, sure thing. Good. I'm so glad you did that. Try to make it interesting. You can put it in any, as long as it's around. Yeah, so like, yeah, like a playground in my basement, or like what room's
Like, oh, yeah, I thought I did marketing the first time.
Yeah, I would put this in the basement, and go in. Yeah. Yeah, that is. Yeah, yeah, thank you, yeah. I'm good.